Okay, so good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second edition of Placement Tales CSE 2022. I'm Aishwarya, a part of CMS and one of the moderators for today. We have received amazing responses for our previous Placement Tales episodes and our Master Your Application series. We have invited a panel of wonderful people from CSE, all in very different job profiles, to give you a better idea of the type of career you choose. We hope you guys get some solid takeaways from their journey and draw from their experiences to make your placement journeys as smooth as possible. Over to Anaga to introduce the panelists. Thank you.
Hi guys, I'm Anagha from fourth sem. I've been a part of the Changemakers Society since my first year, and now I'm the co-head of the design domain. Again, I'd like to thank all the panelists for taking the time and the effort to join us and answering all these questions. It really means a lot. I hope you all have a great time. So the comment section will be open, and if you guys have any more questions for our panelists, feel free to post them in the chat. We will try to cover as many of them as we can. So here's a disclaimer. The speakers draw from their own experiences and will explain everything as accurately as possible according to their knowledge and understanding of various fields. So yeah, let's begin. Firstly, I would like the panelists to share their experience and their journey with all of us. So let's start with Adarsh. So he is an MTS intern at VMware. Thank you for joining us. And yeah, you can start.
Yeah, thanks, Anaga. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Adarsh. So, when I joined PES, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I did a few random courses on Udemy and tried out some PSUIO courses because that was also a way for us to connect with our seniors, unlike now, like how everyone uses Discord. I tried Android Dev, data science, among other stuff, but didn't really like any of them. Then I finally started learning more about web dev and really got into it from when I think in my fourth sem and did some projects till the sixth sem. Then stopped for a while and started contemplating my decision because we all go through the phase, right? Where we start wondering if what we're doing even matters. For me, web dev, I wasn't really sure, but it was something I was interested in, so it was a lot of confusion. So yeah, I started doubting it and kind of thought that it might not be right for me. And that was around the time when we had to pick our capstone project as well. So I started working on a systems focused project for capstone. It's pretty interesting. So I switched my focus there. But I'm kind of bad at managing my time, so I didn't really do more projects to improve upon the system's focus. But capstone was more than enough for me. Then I also did a summer research internship at CDSML. That's our college club. When it comes to other internships, I didn't really look for them because I was kind of worried that I wasn't good enough. I know some of you can think the same, but don't do the same as me. Look for internships. I was a part of a few college clubs like DSC, PESOS, and CMS. All of them were really fun and interesting in their own ways. They helped me quite a bit in improving my communication skills, crisis management skills, and taught me how to work with a large and diverse team. Talking about prepping for placements, I started to prepare for it towards the end of sixth sem when I realized that it's pretty serious and hadn't gone through any coding round when the companies came looking for summer interns. So I was pretty lost and just started checking for out Geeks for Geeks and LeetCode. I knew what they were, but I didn't really use LeetCode a lot. Um, I ended up sticking with both of them because they were really helpful. However, they have a lot of questions. You guys know that, so I know which ones to solve, and I didn't want to just sit and solve hundreds of questions without a plan because that didn't really seem useful. So I ended up finding a list which seemed pretty good at the time. I started picking questions from there under different topics and just kept coding. Like at least there was a small plan in place. While the coding test didn't get instantly easier, I knew that I was getting slightly better because I was practicing instead of just winging it. Once the test was over, I'd talk to my friends, like if I didn't get through, and figure out what was the approach to solving the question that I didn't get, and write down the topic for that problem, and then make sure I solve a few extra problems under that. That's what I did for most of the tests. If I didn't get through, solve a few extra problems and rinse and repeat. One important thing you should know here is So I didn't get through a lot of coding tests, but you should know this, that focus on your placements, because companies just keep coming and recruiting students. And if you lose focus on yourself and start getting worried that everyone else is getting placed, it's going to be a big problem for you. And they just keep going and you just be stuck here. So yeah, like, just focus on your placements. So yeah, so I finally got through the coding round at Comvault, which was a big boost for me because finally got through the coding round. The next few rounds were pretty challenging, but I managed. But unfortunately, I didn't make it through the final round. So it's fine. It was back to square one for me, and I started again. Got rejected in the coding round for a few more companies, and finally got through at VMware. The first time I tried, I got rejected at the penultimate round, but I got a call back from them, and I had to start from the first round, and I got through a second time. But that was after I spoke to my friends about all the interview rounds that I had, where could have gone wrong, where I went wrong, how do I correct it, and then I came more prepared the second time, and that's how my placements went. That's all I have to talk for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Adarsh. Yeah, we got quite a few nice tips, and yeah, I'm looking forward to interacting with you more throughout the session. So next up, I would like to call Purvi. She is a software engineer at Apple, and yeah, could you please tell us more about your journey?
Hi, can you see me, hear me? Is all of that fine? Then let's start.
Everything's fine.
Okay, right, let's go then. Hello, everyone. I'm Purvi, and I'm super excited to be here this morning. I was in your shoes a year ago, or I was confused, I was overwhelmed. So I know how important these kind of talks are and how valuable the information that's passed on here is. So let's dive in. I think my earliest insight into anything placement related was in my second year. And it was so random because we were just waiting in an auditorium, waiting for it to fill up for some event. And Ajoy sir decided to randomly show us this resume, which he deemed was the ideal resume. And you know how we all think that, the ideal resume must have, these amazing test scores and tons of internships and these high level tech projects. But what shocked me was that there was a lot of extracurricular, volunteering, what kind of languages you know. And these things are something that I never even thought of. And after that, I decided to actively seek opportunities which would help me build this resume. And trust me when I say campus clubs, volunteering for fests, organizing them will really help you with all this. I know that you all have a big question mark when it comes to GPA cutoffs and everything, so let's address that already. I've seen that the bigger the company, the lower the GPA cutoff. I think Amazon is as low as 6.5, if I'm not wrong. And startups and fintech companies generally have higher cutoffs. I've seen an average about 8, and the highest one I think was around 8.7 ish when we were interning. So I had a decent GPA, I had a decent resume, and this allowed me to write most of the internship exams, but I couldn't clear anything. I wasn't even able to clear the first coding round that exists. Just like others said, I don't know, it was a big problem for me too. So let's put it in perspective. Visa was the 10th or the 15th company which came for internships, which I finally managed to clear. But everything else, I was just struggling. I could not do it. And I know it's very difficult, but it's very important to not lose hope at all. When you, like he said, everyone's getting through, but you're not. And all your friends are in good companies and you're not. But it's very important to not lose hope, because trust me when I say there is something good waiting for you. Just put in the effort and one day it's going to happen. So one of my tried and tested hacks is the same as his, where it's basically been course correction. Every time I would fail at something, let's say I couldn't solve a question in a coding round, I come back, think about why I couldn't solve it. Let's say I couldn't clear an interview, I come back, think about what did I say which didn't work out. Think about it, fix it, practice it, and then the next time it's going to be better. One more thing I realized is that the summer breaks that you have, don't waste them. Make sure you use them. Because a lot of people say that a huge part of placements is luck. And it's true that you have to be lucky. But that's out of your control. What can you do, right? What you can do is increase the probability of you being lucky. So use your network. Use your parents, your relatives, your friends, your teachers, your seniors, your LinkedIn. Reach out to people to get that internship. Because it doesn't matter if it's unpaid or paid, or whether it's with a good brand but the role is not tech, or if it's a tech role but it's not from a famous brand. It doesn't matter, because the ultimate goal of doing an internship is to learn something new, learn how the real world works. And I have seen it's not just adding to my resume and giving me real world insight, but when I went back to college the next semester, when the teacher's teaching something, I'm not thinking, how do I study this? I'm thinking, how do I apply this? And I've heard that they're really good even if you're applying for masters. So I've been a student all my life, and it's only natural that I'm sick of studying and I want to now dive into the real world and get a job. And that's why I'm not going to apply for masters anytime soon. I've also heard that a lot of companies end up sponsoring your postgrad. And isn't that like eating your cake and having it too? Because you get to study and get paid for it. I think that's enough Gyan for now. So let's hear from the other panelists. That's me, Purvi, and thank you for having me here.
Trust me when I say this, Purvi, after listening to you, I feel a lot better about the position I am in right now. And I'm sure a lot of people feel the same.
Well, that's the goal, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I have a lot of questions, but let's move on. So next up we have Sunit, who's a part of the growth and strategy team at Coach AI.
So thank you. Thanks, Anaga. Hey guys, I'm Sunit. Right now I'm pursuing my majors in computer science and I'm doing a minors in management as well, both at PES. So unlike Adarsh and Purvi, who will talk more about their placement experiences through PES, I am someone who's in a non-tech role and got something off campus. So my takes are gonna be, and my journey is gonna be completely different from what theirs was. So before we get into what I have done, some of the important things, at least that I realized, were if you want an off campus role in a non tech job, what really, really matters is your experiences in, like, let's say, college clubs or your representation in college teams and etc. So, this is what people look for. So, to build on this, I realized I needed to join clubs and be active in communities. So, owing to that, I'm the director of community services at Rotaract Falcon City, and I was the student lead at TEDx PESU for about a year and a half. I've also represented PESU's badminton and basketball teams. I really believe these helped me quite a lot, both in terms of resume building and also it actually helped me gain some experiences and soft skills which are really really important, at least in the path which I've gone in. So how this shift happened, like I took up CS thinking, okay, this is what I want to do. But like I realized in third year when the pandemic occurred and we were all at home, I realized, okay, this is really not my cup of tea. Like I'm not enjoying what I'm doing, neither am I comfortable doing this. So I felt it was quite a thing for me to take that pivot because everyone was, guys, we have to do summer internship, we have to do this, and everyone was focused on that path of getting something CS related so that they're good to go for placements when they happen. But I realized, okay, like I don't think that herd mentality is going to work where I just go with the flow, get what everyone's doing, and then repent later. So I took a step back and I realized, okay, this is what I want to do. So when the pandemic arrived and everything became online, I realized I had quite a lot of free time in hand at home. So to make that transition, I joined a couple of startups and interned there. And people might have questions: how did you get the startup? How do you get this without any prior experience? Because you need experience to get into startup, and to get into startup, you need experience. That cycle is always there. So this is when networking comes into play. This is where being active comes into play. So don't feel shy, like talk to people there. You live in communities, you guys are in one of the best colleges in Bangalore. You have such good seniors and such good network. So don't feel shy, talk to them, ask them if there are some opportunities, tell them what are your qualities, what have you done, which clubs you were a part of, and it'll really help you to get into some or the other startup, be it paid or unpaid. As Purvi said, that doesn't matter. Like the experience is what matters. So that's how I took up a couple of internships over a span of 7 months in the field of management, and I realized, okay, this is what I want to do. So when I was so sure about this, along with my majors in computer science, I supported this with the minors in management at PES, which I really believe helped me be laser focused. I was pretty sure this is what I want to do. So with all that said, right now I'm preparing for CAT 2022, and finally right now because of the experiences at these startups, at the low startups, which I started in third year, and owing to the clubs which I was a part of, owing to the teams which I've represented, I got a role at a startup named Coach AI, and I'm a part of the growth and strategy team. So yeah, that's my story. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunit. Figuring out what you're good at and working on it is what is most important. Thank you so much for sharing, and I look forward to interacting with you. Let's move on to Swanuja. She's she's an application engineer at IDFC Bank. Swanuja, are you there?
Hi, yeah.
Hi.
Am I audible and can you see me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Good morning, everyone. And first, before I start talking about myself and my journey, I just want to thank CMS for having me on this panel. And exactly a year later, it feels nice to be on the other side. So thank you. So let me just start off with what I'm currently doing. I'm currently working as a data engineer intern at Zebra Technologies. And I have an FTE offer from IDFC Bank as an application engineer. And I was also the ex co-head of the Changemakers Society. So I've broken down my journey into points. Let me just talk about the main points that are needed for placements. As for my GPA was below 8 by the end of fourth sem. And throughout my fifth and sixth sem, I managed to pull it up to just above 8, but I was still below 8.5. But despite that, I was able to sit for, I think, majority of the companies that came. I would say around 95%. I think I missed out on just 2, 3 companies because it wasn't 8.5. But the number of companies that come is huge to PES. So just missing out on a few companies doesn't really matter. So if you're, say, at 8, your GPA is good. If you're borderline, try to pick it up during your sixth sem. But otherwise, if it's above 7 also, you're set because like Purvi said, the bigger the company, lower the cutoff, and majority of the T1 companies themselves had 7 as their cutoff, so you should be fine. As for my internships, I didn't do any internship in my first year. In my second year, I was interning at CCBD, but we weren't able to finish the project due to some mess ups. So I don't mention that in my profile anywhere. So it's as good as saying I didn't do anything in my second year summer. And then once companies started coming in third year for internships, I wasn't able to crack any of the coding tests on campus. So I got one off campus at as a data journalism intern at an information design company called Information is Beautiful. So on my resume, there's just one summer internship I did in my third year. As for my projects on my resume, I listed my course projects itself. I didn't have the time or the energy to go beyond and do extra projects that's out of my course. Other things that I mentioned on my resume were my summer internship. I have an online store where I design and sell products. So I mentioned that as well because that usually sparks some interest among interviewers. I mentioned my co-head role at CMS, any other volunteering activities I've done at Atmatrisha and TAS or any other NGOs I've worked at, and whatever online courses I've done. And I also mentioned all my technical and non-technical skills on my resume. I still haven't figured out what I like and what I'm good at even now. So I didn't have any particular domain I was extremely passionate about, but I didn't hate anything in particular either. So when companies started coming, I decided to apply for any and every role that came. It might be a tech role, non-tech role at every company. And I've decided that I'll figure out what I like while I'm working. As for actual coding, I am not inherently very good at coding. The solutions don't come to me easily after I look at a problem. So practicing daily was my only way out, and that is exactly what I didn't do. I wasted my sixth sem, any free time I had, and I wasted my entire summer, and I didn't make use of the free time I had. And then when the first company came in August, which was Cred with a 40 lakh package, I sat for the coding test and it was an absolute wreck. I didn't even know how to start coding the solution for any one of the questions that was asked. And I realized how bad my coding condition was in August after companies had started coming. And I didn't know most of my important concepts thoroughly because my fourth sem was the first lockdown we were in. So because we didn't have ESAs, I just managed to skip half of I managed to skip dynamic programming, hash tables, graphs, etc. And I didn't know how to apply these concepts in coding questions. I didn't know how to optimize my solutions, nothing. So after cred, the reality of how screwed I am hit me, and then that's when I started working. That's when I started to start working on my basic concepts, and that's when I started coding. So I'll go into the details of my prep later during the Q&A, but let me just finish off my introduction with some quick stats. Companies started coming in August. Throughout 3 months, I sat for around 55 companies and gave around 55 coding tests. I got selected for the interviews in 4 of them. I got rejected in 3 interviews, and then I finally got one offer at IDFC Bank by October end. So I think I'll just end by saying that it's never too late to start prepping. I started from square one after companies had started coming, and it's obviously going to benefit you if you make use of your time before, but it's not the end of your placement journey if you don't start soon. And yeah, I think that's it for now. And I'll go into the details of prep in the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Swanuja. We've just started and I've already learned so much from you. And yeah, I feel so motivated. But yeah, let's move on to Prithwijit. He is a technical analyst at Deloitte, USA. Hi.
Hey, Anaga, am I audible and visible?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, good morning, guys. First of all, I'd like to start by thanking the CMS President Smriti and Anaga Ashwarya and her team, because I know, because I've been in your position, exact position 1 year before, and placements can be stressful, harrowing, and this, I believe, is like a great forum for us who've been through the stress of placements to like give you an idea of what goes on and what you need to focus on. So I think this is a great forum for that. So I'll just get started on my journey then. So right now I'm working as an intern at Zebra Technologies Private Limited with Swanuja. She's my colleague. So yeah, and apart from that, I have offers, full-time offers from Bosch and Deloitte USI. So coming to my placement journey, to start off, during when everyone was applying for summer internships and all, I also tried my hand at them, and I realized that I couldn't get anything at all. Like even the tests, even the placement tests, they were like very very hard for me. Like even 1 or 2 coding questions I used to get in. If there were 3 coding questions, I could get 1 or 2, and obviously if the company is coming for an internship, they'll pick only max 2 or 5 people. So unless you get all 3 on 3, you don't have a chance of getting selected, because there are 600 people writing that same test from your college. So around that time, I was pretty disheartened and dejected. So I took that upon me, as Adarsh and Purvi and all said, like that you should not take that as a criticism per se, but you can work on it, because then what I did was I made up a huge Excel sheet, and whatever concepts that I was failing to pass in the coding rounds, let's say graphs or trees or any other concepts, or GFS, BFS, whatever. So those concepts I kept jotting down, so that whenever there was not a placement test in my schedule from the PES placements mails, so I could work on perfecting that part of whatever I was not getting. So this is how I focused on the parts that I was not getting. And coming to resources, I think YouTube is a brilliant resource, because whatever topics you don't have, and I know that sometimes college courses do not cover or go into that much depth pertaining to direct coding questions or direct placement related questions. So YouTube is a very brilliant resource, because you can be as specific as you want, and you get a plethora of videos which helps you out, which talks you through how to go through specific questions. And even you can go through Geeks for Geeks, which has previous year questions pertaining to the company tax. So you can tag your particular company, say Amazon or Deloitte or Apple, and you can practice those particular questions which had come previously. So I did those, and one by one I started taking off that huge Excel sheet of stuff that I had, and I slowly got better and better. My accuracy increased in those placement tests, and I felt myself improve. I was still not getting to the interview part, but I could see that I was improving in my placement tests and getting a higher score, or getting like 3 on 3 instead of 2 on 3. And even some of the optimized solutions, the timing was getting better. So I kept doing that, and because I wasn't successful enough to get to land in summer internship, I filled my time doing this, as well as joining participating in a couple of hackathons. So even there, I could like explore what I liked when it came to tech roles and stuff. And I that was a good practice platform, because even in hackathons, you have to there's a sort of interview process with your team mentor or your judge. So even that helped when you can explain your product or what you've developed. So even that helped a lot. Coming to the finally, when I could crack into one of the tests, Bosch was my first one that I cracked, and I went through the interview process, the first technical round interview, and then the HR interview, and it was a breeze. Trust me. As soon as you pass through when you break through that ceiling of placement tests, it turns out to be a breeze, because then you start getting that confidence that now I can pass through a placement test. So after that, uh, the interviews just kept coming, and I just kept giving on interviews, and some of them clicked. So yeah, here I am now. And a thing that I'd like to add that the others haven't mentioned yet is that a lot of times when it comes to placement tests and interviews, we generally focus on coding. I know that because I used to suck at coding, so I developed on that skill. But please do not neglect the aptitude and reasoning part as well, because a lot of companies have a specific dedicated aptitude and reasoning section, and they have section wise cutoffs. So even if you score very good in coding and you don't clear the cutoff in the aptitude and reasoning round, you won't get selected for the interview process. So I know aptitude is something you all have been learning since school, but try to refresh upon the it's not about what you know, it's about how fast you do it, because there's a time limit in the aptitude rounds. There's a lot of questions and a very limited amount of time, which is flipped in the coding round. There's like only 2 or 3 questions and you get an hour. So an aptitude is not what you know, it's how quick you know and how fast you can do it. Apart from that, your resume is very important, because in the interview, generally after the technical interview elapses, like whatever they want to ask you to live code or whatever. After that part elapses, they generally focus on resume and ask you your projects, your extracurriculars and all that. So my extracurriculars, I was training and development in charge at PES Man Society, and also I've been the PR head for the community of data science. So I have been in non-technical as well as technical clubs in the college, so that helped a lot. And coming to the Mansoc, I think we all neglect speaking skills because we are all CS engineers, so we tend to give a lot of time to coding and tech related stuff. But what I've realized is in the interviews, it's not what you know and how much you know, but how you put it across. So I think if you can, please involve yourself in clubs and extracurriculars where you have a decent exposure, and where you talk to people, where you can practice your speaking skills, because that is pretty important when it comes to interviews, because you need to know how to put whatever you know across in a beautiful fashion, so that the interview knows that this person not only can do whatever work I assign him, but he can also communicate with his teammates and has a good work relationship. So that's all from my side. I hope to continue this in the question and answer section. Thank you.
Thank you, Prithwijit. My camera isn't on, but if it was, you would have been able to see me just nodding my head vigorously the entire time. And about the Excel sheet thing, I think that's something which all of us should do. And yeah, thank you for all the tips. Let's move on. Next up we have Samhita Irrinki. She is a software development intern at Cisco Systems. Samhita, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi.
Hi. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Can you see me?
I can't see you. Yeah, I can see you now.
Yeah. Hey everyone, and thank you so much, CMS, for having me over here as a panelist. And so, starting to tell something about myself, my name is Samhita. Currently, I'm interning at Cisco, and I also have a performance-based full-time offer at Cisco. So the internship period is for 6 months. So starting off with my entire journey at PES, when I joined PES, I came with a completely, I would say, open mind, or some would probably call it clueless. I really didn't know what my interests were. I really didn't know what to do. A lot of people, I knew a lot of people who were into web development. I know a lot of people who were into AI, and I was just this person who was absolutely clueless. So I did try out a few IO courses, similar to how others did, and there were a few Udemy courses, and then I just like put my foot here and there and like tried multiple different things. But there wasn't anything that I found strikingly interesting or something that made me want to pursue it. I think somewhere towards the end of second year, or I think first year, I'm not really sure. Uh, there's this research club called CCBD in PES. So I'd enrolled in that, and then I got a team, and I was assigned a mentor, and we were given a project. And for the first time, I felt like I was working on a project called Spatial Hadoop. It's a framework. So I think for the first time, I felt like it was something that sort of aligned with my interests. It was something that I found challenging for me. So over that summer, I had worked on the project, but unfortunately, it's like we put in a lot of effort into that project, but unfortunately, we weren't getting the results that we wanted. So all this while, placements were sort of never even in the back of my head. I was just like happy go lucky going through whatever came. So that's when internship tests and all of that had started, and we'd gotten an entire speech from Doreswamy sir and Jawahar sir about how you need to attend at least 6 hackathons every semester. You need to have an amazing CGPA. 9+ CGPA is recommended, and like a lot of things which really really overwhelmed me. And at that point in time, placement internship tests had just started, and it was also the time when COVID, the pandemic had just started. So my DSA, I used to not attend online classes. So I was like an absolute mess, and I wasn't able to clear a single coding test. And that's when I think I'm like, you know what, I just need an entire structure. And I bought this DSA course on Geeks to Geeks. I'll just let Anagha or Khushi, I'll send that link to them later. So I started like sort of having a clear cut way of how I started studying my subjects that I was weak at. Like, for example, I was weak at dynamic programming. So I like slowly started preparing for that. And the first interview that I had gotten was Akamai. It was a networking company. And to be very honest, that coding course is pretty easy. I think that's why I had scored an interview. I went through the first round of interview. I went to the second round of interview, and then somehow they rejected me the third round. And at that point in time, this was my first test, and I really didn't know. So at that point in time, I'm like, you know what, this is really unfair, because I felt like my friends had like sort of an easier question, and then I wasn't really comfortable with the entire interview process. And that's when I realized that how much luck really factors in when you consider this. And like Purvi earlier said, all you can do is amplify the probability of you getting into, of you even scoring an interview. So that's when I think I really started preparing, and I really started seeing what my weak points were. So in that particular company, what I had done is I used to sort of exhaustively solve questions from just one particular topic. Like I said, I wasn't really good at dynamic programming, so I used to exhaustively solve questions. So what happened is my approach to solve any question would in turn become that. So I remember I was asked an extremely simple question in the managerial round, but I somehow complicated it because my thinking process was solely thinking from that point of view. So one of my major suggestions would be is that half of the question is solved when you know how to solve the question, like if you know the methodology. So I suggest that you solve questions randomly and not from a particular topic, because assume that I'm solving a topic, say, from trees. I already know that it's trees, so that sort of like kills half of the thinking. So yeah, and then the next company that I had gotten for internships was Target. At my point of view, I had done really well in the interview, but somehow, again, I couldn't clear that. I was rejected there. So at this point, I was extremely disheartened. And then the actual placement started. So I had 2 months of summer to prepare, and I had taken up another project at CCBD. This is something, again, I really liked, and I'm not someone who just goes out of their comfort zone. So I still decided to intern within college. I don't suggest you do that. There are no cons associated with it, but it's just about putting yourself out there. Since I was interning at CCBD, I had another good project on my resume. So I you don't have to have a gazillion things on your resume, because with your intern, during your interview, you will probably get to speak about one or two of your projects. So just please have on the back of your head as to what you're going to talk about, and just, even if you just have one really good project, I think that's good enough. Don't overwhelm yourself and like, okay, that person has like 10 amazing projects I don't have. That's absolutely fine. So coming to placements, so I think initially we used to have one test literally every day, and that's how crazy it was. That's the number of companies that were pouring in, and I was already in this impression that, okay, the number of companies that came for internships, that's how scanty it's going to be for placements as well. But that's absolutely not true. There are a lot of more companies that come in for placements. And so the first interview that I had was for HP. uh, I had cleared the first two rounds, but again, I was rejected in the third round. So again, it was just pulling experiences from your previous interviews, from your previous coding rounds, and all of that. And finally, in sometime beginning of September or mid September, Cisco came. And as funny as it would sound, Cisco was sort of my, I think, worst interview. Like, I thought I had performed my worst in during the interviews. And I remember that after every round, I thought that, okay, I'm definitely not getting this company. But somehow in the end, it just turned out to be my company. And like I said, luck does play a lot. And it's also about not bagging your interview. It's not like interviewer asks 10 questions and you've just answered all 10 of them. It's about what the interviewer sort of sees in you. It's about how you sell yourself. So it, even sometimes when you haven't answered a single question, but they also look at the way you've approached the question. So a lot of these things matter into, getting your dream job or your dream company. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Samhita. We learned so much from you. Thank you so much for your tips. So let's start with this. I'm a little mind blown. Thank you so much for all the tips you've given us. And I already have 2 pages worth of notes. So again, I'd like to thank all the panelists for sharing, and I'm sure our viewers have learned a lot. So let's get into the Q&A part of our event. First question. What were your placements like? It's a very vague question, so go for it.
Anika, could you mention who's supposed to answer the question?
Is it according to the sheet that we were given?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Samhita and Adarsh, you guys can take up the first question.
So essentially, your placements initially, the placement cell tries to send companies in descending order of their pay as much as possible. They don't exactly stick to that procedure, but initially you will have a lot of companies pouring in. Like, I think placement procedure started in August. We had just finished our ESA for, I think, I don't exactly remember which sem, but there were a lot of companies that were coming in. And the first company that came was Cred. It was a 40 lakh package. And Yeah, so how the normal trend goes is you have a coding round, and then some companies, mostly a lot of startups like Rapido was there, Cred was there, Udan was there. They have Navi was there. They have this extra round called system design round. So apart from your coding, actually these companies sort of look for more of backend developers and all of that. So apart from your coding general DSA round, they have another round which is systems design round where you're given a situation and you're asked to design a system and an entire object oriented functioning system. So that's how the placement trend is like. And which all okay, Adarsh, would you like to answer which all?
Yeah.
What's the procedure? Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it varies from company to company. Usually, they have a coding round, one or two tech rounds, and maybe a managerial round, and then it's HR. But there was one company which did shortlist. I'm not sure. I think it was Couchbase. I am not sure. Solely based on the resumes. There's no coding round or something. You just submit your resumes, and they shortlist based on what's there. And then they had a direct interview with them. But this is a one-off thing. Don't depend on that, and don't not code. Please continue to practice coding. Um, One thing you should know is while placement cell is trying to send it in descending order, you do not need to worry. It's not like from 40 you drop down to 30, then 20, then you're just down to 10 lakhs or something. There are a lot of companies. So if you want, you can just go to the placement cell right when you enter through the doors. There'll be like some 4 sheets with just companies that have come in the previous year. I think when I was freaking out, I did go there once, and there were, I'm not sure, don't quote me on this, I think 150 to 200 companies or more. I'm not sure. But you can see how many companies are there. So you do not need to worry about that. Instead, you better thoroughly understand what the company does, like the ones which they send. And you don't need to worry about others getting placed, as there are a lot of companies that will be coming. You can just check out that list whenever you're freaking out, just to ensure that, okay, there are more companies. I just need to focus on getting placed. But don't chill out because there are companies, because you never know if they'll come or no. You just need to keep yourself on track. And don't focus only on the CTCs, because the first few companies which come will offer like huge amounts, and it's not like the others will not. Like, it's like you just see one package and like, oh yeah, that's the best, that's it. Don't worry about that. You just need to focus on what the company does and whether you want to do it or no, because the first company you join matters. Okay. And the other thing is focus on OSCN, DBMS, and DSA, which is mainly important for your interview and your coding rounds. That's literally the only subjects they're going to question you on. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah. So coming to what are the important subjects in technical round? Now, your coding round, before every company's coding test that you've applied to, just look up the procedure. You will find it on Geeks for Geeks. Some people must have listed out their interview experience. So just look up, and even the 2-3 days time that you have, try to prepare in accordance with the company. And first, prepare for the coding test. Only then you'll have whatever system design round if it's there, and then only then you'll have other uh, your technical interview. So, and coming to the technical interview, if you clear the coding round, it depends, actually varies a lot from company to company. Like, for example, like I mentioned earlier, if you're having early start not early startups like Cred and Udan, they look mostly for backend developers. So if you have really good projects in either app development or you've created websites, and that's a good you'll shine well in those companies. And if there are MNCs like something like VMware or Cisco, they sort of work with bigger projects. So essentially, they are looking for you to have really good basics. So they question you on CN, they question you on OS. Like, say for example, Cisco is a networking company, right? So all of their questions, interview questions, or most of them were based on networking. So your course, your OS and CN course is actually really, really important for your preparation placement.
Oh yeah. One last thing. When you see the CTC and it's really huge, don't just go for it. See the breakdown because it's sometimes inflated in certain ways. Just check the breakdown before you just jump into it. Yeah, that's all I have
Yeah,
to say.
I remember there was this one company called Math Company that they said that they had 45 lakh CTC, and they were saying 45 lakhs over 4 years. So the first year they were offering just 4 lakhs. So just like look out for companies like that.
Oh, okay. Also, I have another question. So, what is the CS placement process like, and how would you advise one to prepare for it?
Um, okay, so I can take this one. Let me wait. My video is not on. Okay, so let Adarsh and Samhita have covered most of the.
Okay, so apparently it's working now. So, let's just start from the beginning. So, I'll just ask the question again as well.
Yes, sure.
1 second. Okay, so what is the structure of the CS placement process? And yeah, what is the structure of the CS placement process, and how would you advise one?
Okay, so apparently it's working now. There are three main sections when it comes to the placement process. First, there's a GPA cutoff, a coding test, and then you have interviews. So let me start off with the GPA part. If your GPA is 8 and above, you are good, you are set. It doesn't have to be 8.5 and above. If you are borderline right now, try and make use of sixth sem to try to pull it up just above 8 before placement start in August. And there is no shortcut to improving your SGPA. Just try to identify where you're going wrong in your ISAs and ESAs or assignments and try to improve your grade. I realized the mistakes I was making let's just Hello, is it working now? Okay, so yeah, it's working. Swanuja, I'm so sorry. Can you start again? So
Yeah, sure.
yeah,
Where was I cut off, or do I start with the GPA explanation again?
no, it's fine. You can just start like where we cut you off.
Okay, so that's the GPA part kept aside. Now, once you have cut off, you have cleared the GPA cutoff, you get selected for the coding test. So I would highly recommend you and your friends create like a shared Google Calendar, because the number of companies that come is overwhelming. Well, the placement cell can send like an email today and there'll be a test tomorrow at 11. They'll send an email today and there'll be a test day after tomorrow at 7. And you will 100% lose track of the tests you have to write. So the minute you get a mail, anyone, you can create a small like group, and one of you can make an event on a Google Calendar and share it with your friends. So all of you have track of which test to write when. There are also registration deadlines, and I missed a few. So make sure you don't miss any registration deadlines. So you get to write all, sit for all companies. So just keep track of all your coding tests and registration deadlines on a Google Calendar. After that, the actual coding test. So the coding test is split into two very broad sections. One is actual coding questions and one are the MCQs. So let me talk about the actual coding questions first. I'd highly recommend you pick one coding language you're most comfortable with and you stick to that. Don't try to start learning a brand new language right now. I was initially in the mindset that okay, I should start learning C++ or something, but that now is not the time to do that. I knew Python and C, and I decided to not spend extra time learning C++ or Java. So I chose Python and stuck with it because obviously it has many inbuilt functions and libraries, and C wasn't good that way. So be strong in at least one language. The company doesn't care which language you code in as long as you're able to solve the questions. So I just practiced in C throughout, and in Python throughout, and I made sure I was very strong in my Python concepts, building classes, how to use it in the coding questions. Very, very few tests didn't have Python as an option. I think two companies didn't have it as an option in their coding test. And that's just hard luck. That's okay. There are many more companies that will come and then you'll do better there. So after you've picked a coding language, stick to it. Make sure you practice all your concepts in that. Don't spend too much time reading CS theory. I made the mistake of spending time reading explanations of how various data structures and algorithms work. Don't do that because you need to know how to apply the concepts you're reading. If you need to brush up the basics, just read it once on Geeks for Geeks or something, and then immediately start practicing coding questions, even if you're not confident. You learn more as you code and not when you just read articles or explanations about it. I would say try to code every day. Use Lead Code, use Geeks for Geeks, learn up. You can look up company specific coding questions. Code with your friends. There's a platform called Binary Search where you can get together and code. Try to be consistent with your coding. Sometimes I did like 10, 20 questions a day, and then sometimes I wouldn't code like for 5 days straight, which isn't good, but try to be consistent. If you're not confident with your coding, start off with easier concepts like arrays, linked lists, and start with the easy level questions on lead code, and then move up to higher, harder questions that involve dynamic programming, trees, and graphs. When you code, always start with the brute force approach first and then see how you can optimize it. Even in interviews, always explain your brute force approach first and then talk about how you can make the solution better. And while practicing, if you're stuck, don't waste time. If you think you're spending more than 20, 30 minutes on the question, see the solution, understand how they've solved it, and then come back to it a few days later. I used to maintain an Excel sheet of sums where I wasn't able to solve some questions. So I'd make a note of it and then I'll come back to it a few days later. So you can keep track of your progress like that. And don't be afraid or shy to ask questions. I made a WhatsApp group with my friends just to ask coding questions called the Swanuja Help Group. So call them, text them, send screenshots of where you think you're going wrong, ask them for an explanation. Everyone's there to get placed. There's absolutely no need to feel shy or afraid to ask questions. Also, YouTube, like Prithwijit said, is a huge, excellent resource. There are YouTube explanations available. There's Free Code Camp, there's Abdul Bari's YouTube channel, there's My Code School. And if you just type lead code question number 10, for example, there'll be like plenty of explanations explaining lead code question 10. So that's one way you can go about improving your coding skills. Now, as for the MCQs, there are MCQs asked in, say, technical subjects like operating systems, computer networks, DBMS, and OOPS. And there are also general aptitude questions. Geeks for Geeks have really good cheat sheets when it comes to aptitude questions, where they've given formulas and explanations for, say, water tank questions or distance speed questions or the number of days it takes to finish a task question. So you can go revise your aptitude questions there. For the technical subjects, for operating systems, I highly recommend you watch Gate Smashers operating systems playlist on YouTube. This helped me a lot in my interviews. And for subjects such as DBMS and OOPS, you can just Google top DBMS questions asked in interviews or top OOPS questions asked in interviews. And most of the interviews just ask generic and general concepts, and these websites can cover that. So now that you're past the coding test and the MCQ, you sit for the interview. Every interview is different, and there's really no fixed pattern here, which is why you need to be thorough in everything. You need to know your technical concepts well, and you need to know your resume inside and out. I think there's another question on interview Q&A, which Purvi will also be taking up. So I think we'll go more detail in interviews about there. But don't try to bullshit in your interview and don't try to scam the interviewers either. Some interviewers focus more on your coding. Some want to know how well are your algorithms. Some want to know more about your projects. So be prepared for anything. Don't put projects on your resume you have no idea how you did or if you scammed it from somewhere. Only put projects you are 100% confident about. If you have done some courses and mentioned it on the resume, go and revise those courses. Go remind yourself what you've learned from your courses if they ask any questions about it. Be confident during your interviews. Look happy, be polite. You can always crack a lame joke here or there. And ask the interviewer questions towards the end. Show interest in their work and their company. That's always that'll give you brownie points. And remember that you don't have to answer each and every question asked in the interview. In one interview, I said, I don't know for 50% of the questions, and that was still okay. I managed to clear it. It's your attitude that matters when they ask the questions. Are you trying to solve it? Are you willing to learn how to solve the question? So even if you say, I don't know, or if you don't get the solution, you'll be completely fine. I think I've covered the basic placement process. If I've missed out on anything, anyone else can add on. And I'd just like to remind everyone once again that a lot of things depend on your luck that day. You may be prepared 100%, but if it's not meant for you, you won't get it. You might get a bad interviewer, or you'll still get rejected despite reaching even the HR round, which is what happened to me for 3 companies. In one company, I was grilled for an hour about DSA, and other people just got way chiller interviewers, and they were just asked to talk about their projects for 10 minutes and they were done. So that was just bad luck on my end, and there's nothing you can do about it. And sometimes things just aren't meant to work out, but don't worry, it just means something better is in store for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just have one question. I think we missed out on this. So can you guys just talk about more like the other ways of getting placed, like other than the on-campus placements? Like how do you approach them and how does it work?
Actually, so what you can do is you'll find different job postings on LinkedIn, and you can apply for those. But generally, all of these have around 1,000 plus applicants. So you will probably not receive a call back. So another thing that you can do is, this I think you can only do it on LinkedIn Premium. So what I did was, you find HRs from different companies and you just message them with an introduction and a resume. So like, when you're sending a message request on LinkedIn, you just have um, a word limit. So just, and this I recommend, if you're applying off campus, be very specific with the type of job you want, because only then it's helpful. So you just message the HR, because the HR is the one who's doing the entire recruitment process, and you message them specifically about your skills, because they'll probably not even read your resume. That's sort of the mistake I did, because I remembered I had applied offline with a couple of my friends, and one of them got called and I didn't. And I was wondering what my mistake was, is because I probably made my introduction too generic. So please specify your domain and your domain of interest while sending them a message. So I think this is like one of the this is one of the methods that probably works the most, because LinkedIn, even though there are millions of job openings, there are a lot of people who apply to it. So imagine in PES you're competing with 600 people. There it's literally everybody else there. Each job opening has around 2000 plus applicants.
Adding on to what Samhita said, definitely LinkedIn is a great source for getting off-campus placement. And like I myself did, some of the key points which I would like to mention if someone is looking forward for an off-campus internship or placement for that matter, can be one, don't feel shy to network, as I mentioned in my introduction as well. As in, network is quite an important part of it when it comes to off-campus placements, because if I go and interact with my dad, or let's say I live in an apartment where I know some uncles who are ready to help, you shouldn't feel shy that like I don't want to talk to them, they're not of my age. Like, you really have no idea how many people want people to work for them, and if this is something which you'll get to know only and only if you speak to people. So one is network, speak to people. Second one, as Samhita mentioned, apply on LinkedIn, keep your profile crisp and keep your LinkedIn updated. That's a very, very important thing, because the first thing they'll ask for is your LinkedIn profile link. So that's one thing. So apply on, there are various platforms, like there's LinkedIn, there's Internshala, there's AngelList, there's IIM Jobs, quite a lot of platforms. So you'll definitely find a lot of things of interest. And she did mention about the 1000 plus applicants, which is very true in most cases. So yeah, just keep a look, keep your eyes open for what other openings which are there in off-campus placements. And yeah, I mean, to start, I mean, everyone is going to mention how to get experience. I'm not even joking. Just go ask your own dad. He will guide you through it, and he will, if worst case, he might offer you some unpaid internship in his company or his friend's company. So make use of these opportunities and get a good start. After that, you can definitely use this experience and the skills which you've gained in order to get off-campus placements. So yeah, and also one more thing, don't be like studies is the most important thing. As important as it is to have a good GPA and to be good at knowing the course knowledge, it's also important to be a part of extracurriculars, because I'm pretty sure most of the panelists will agree with me. None of us ever spoke about how we studied for 6 hours for a CN exam or an OS exam or anything. As important as the knowledge is, most of the content which you're going to be speaking about in your off-campus interviews, especially, I can't vouch for the on-campus interviews, was about how you have inculcated skills by being a part of various societies, clubs, and communities, and roles of responsibility. So yeah, I would ask, I mean, I would suggest you to focus on these parts of it.
Oh, okay. So the main thing is we just need to be confident, not be shy, and just approach people. Basically, be shameless. Got it.
Yep.
Thank you so much. So, Aishwarya, will you go on with the next question?
Yeah, thank you so much, guys, for the great info. So, moving on to the next question. This question is for Swanuja, Samhita, and Purvi. What kind of projects did you do during your time at PES?
The first 2 years, I just took up project. I just did the course projects. As I mentioned, I interned at CCBD. So in CCPD, I had taken up two projects. The first one didn't really work out. However, I still did mention it on my resume because I felt like there was a significant amount of effort that was put into it. And interviewers don't specifically look for the success or end results of it. It's sort of like the learning experience that you have. And coming to how important projects are for your resume, you will probably find a lot of people who have done like a million of Udemy courses and who have a lot of projects. And although that is very important, like I had mentioned earlier, for your interview, you will probably get to speak about just one or two projects and not all of the projects that you've done. So choose the projects that you want to speak about wisely and choose it according to the companies that are coming. Like, for example, there could be a person who has a really good resume and say something about AI or machine intelligence in that domain. But how the role or the recruiter that's coming does not have anything relevant, they do not have positions relevant to what you have done in your resume. So that's when they sort of look into, the basics such as OS and networking, and it's all completely related and it's all sort of the roles that they are looking for. So, yeah, so about projects, you do not need 10 different projects. You probably need one or two really good projects. And again, you're later on, I think, yeah, you guys would have started off with your capstone or are going to start with your capstone. So yeah, that also sort of adds to your resume. Talk about your capstone, and because capstone's like your major college project, so that's also important. So apart from that, you don't, I mean, it's good if you are looking out to do projects, and you can, if you're interested, you can also take up certain freelance projects. But from a placement point of view, I suggest that do not overwhelm yourself. Like, do not overwhelm yourself because someone said you need to attend hackathons and you need, like, a list of 10 projects. Don't overwhelm yourself. Just try to focus on basics, try to focus on the coding, and also certain good projects.
Purvi, do you want to take it ahead or do I answer it?
Anything's fine, Swanija, whatever. You want to start? Go for it.
Okay, I'll just mention like a few more points. Like Samhita said, you don't have to do any extra projects. I didn't do any extra projects. So what I did was I listed down all the projects I did from my first sem till sixth sem. Or the course projects, say DBMS, data analytics, big data, whatever. And then I picked my top five, like where I think I contributed really well, or I think the project was done really good. And I just mentioned those on my resume. And naturally, those are the ones you're going to be questioned on during your interview. So my top three projects are ML or data science related. And I was asked questions in all my interviews based on ML and data science, even if the role had nothing to do with it. And you don't just have to know, obviously, you have to know the inside outs of how your projects work. But if it's an ML based project, even say if your project had nothing to do with, say, supervised learning, they might ask you questions on what is the difference between supervised or unsupervised learning, or what are the different types of metrics, what is a confusion matrix. So if it's an ML or data science project, they will ask you how you worked on your project, but they'll also check if you know the basics of what the project is based on. So just pick like your five favorite projects you've done in your 6 semesters, the ones you're confident with. And the professors used to make us write write-ups while submitting each project. So I used to hate writing write-ups back then, but while preparing, I realized how helpful they were, because I could just go read my write-up and all the things I did like were coming back to me of how I worked on it. So know your domain and know the basics of the project you're working on. That's it.
Okay, so let's pick up. I'll tell you what I felt in my experience so far. So, because I was part of the computer science department, we had a lot of standard projects that we did because they were mandatory with some courses. So, I think data structures, data science, web development were all compulsory projects for us. So, it's not like if you're part of the computer science department, you'll ever be lacking in any kind of projects on your resume. But what I've seen is because everyone is doing these projects and everyone is putting it on their resume, there's nothing which will help you stand out. So, like everyone has already mentioned, you should have one or two good projects. And what I did at least was made sure that it was very different, very hatke from what everyone else does. So I think all my batchmates were very much into machine learning and artificial intelligence, but that wasn't something which interested me. And I was one of those people who had blockchain projects, cybersecurity projects on my resume. And it's a very, very interesting talking point in an interview because most of the times the interviewers haven't seen blockchain projects on someone's resume. So it's very nice to talk about and it will generate more questions for you. And when you know it well, it's a very, very good chance to show that you're not just restricted to what is being taught and what's expected of you, but you're also going out of your way to learn something new. And so I just want to touch on because how my projects are very unique. I want to touch upon the difficulty level as well. So a lot of people ask me whether it's important for it to be like this high level, very tough project. But I think what matters more is how close it is to the real world. You could have this absolutely amazing project, but if it can't really be applied, the interview kind of loses a little bit interest because they're like, how do I push this to a consumer, right? And with respect to domains that you can do your projects in, I think machine learning and data science, like everyone's mentioned so far, is everywhere. But so is cybersecurity and cloud and literally any domain that you're interested in. Especially now, because of the whole online thing, there are plenty of companies which are hiring for every role under the sun. So I think find what you like to do and make sure that you're good at it. Like become a master at it and the companies will follow. I think that's my insight into projects and domains and all of that.
Guys, anyone else? Do you have anything to add or do we move on to the next question? Okay, so let's just move on to the next question. So, I would like Prithwijit and Samhita to take this up. So, did you use any courses or online resources? If you did, can you please mention a few good ones to learn from?
Samhita, I'll just go ahead before you. If that's fine.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, please. Okay. So, coming to courses and online resources, particularly, I think because our placement season happened during the lockdown pandemic situation, I think a lot of us were motivated to actually go ahead and do a couple of courses on Udemy, on Academy, whatever. And for me personally, I did the Microsoft Azure certifications on cloud. So I have a certification on that as well as Azure data analytics, I think. Yeah, so I have those two certifications, and it does add a lot of value on your resume if you have a certification from a verified source. So what I also did was I did take up an IoT course from Stanford. It was an online course, and you just attend the course, and then there's a quiz at the end of it. And after you pass the quiz, which is sort of an exam, you get a certificate from Stanford. So a lot of my interviewers, like multiple companies, interviewers, they had asked me about these my Azure certifications as well as my IoT certifications. They were pretty impressed that I had utilized the pandemic time to do all of this apart from my already existing college courses. As Purvi mentioned, ML, AI, all those things will definitely be there. But apart from that, if you can add something hatke, as she said, something like cloud certifications and whatnot, that is definitely a plus whenever it comes to interviews. Like even in the IoT course, and if you don't have to look that far also for these courses, everything's available online. And if you want to do something hands-on, then definitely take up those PSUIO courses, because I remember in my first year or first sem or second semester, I had taken up the Smart Cities and IoT course from PSUIO. So in that, I had at the end of the PSUIO course, we had to do a small project on IoT. So what me and my team had built was sound and air pollution monitoring system with Arduino Uno. So when I put that in my resume, as Purvi already mentioned, that already I had NLP projects and ML projects and sentiment analysis and all that. That was there. But these interviewers have, like, if they're interviewing some 10 people and everyone does put up an ML or AI project, it seems good that there's an IoT project. And when I was giving my Bosch interview, that person happened to be a manager who was specializing in IoT devices and that. So we did spend a good chunk of the 1 hour interview time just focused on discussing that IoT project. So having additional courses and all that does help a lot when it comes to the interviews. It might not give you an advantage when it comes to tests, because those are definitely just coding and basics and whatever DSA you learn and practice in college and on your own on Geeks for Geeks. But when it comes to interview, definitely whatever courses you have done and you are confident about, make sure that even though you have a certification, you know nothing about it because you had done it some 2-3 years back. It's not going to help you at all, because they're going to catch you and they're going to ask you specific questions related to Azure. Because I had a couple of questions related to Azure, like what services have you used, and they had asked me all those questions. So if you're not confident about those courses, please don't put it on your resume, because they are going to grill you on that. So yeah, Samhita, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I'd like to talk about the DSA part and the websites that helped me in preparing for my competitive coding. So Geeks for Geeks, I think there isn't a single question out there that isn't on Geeks for Geeks or Lead Code. So essentially what I did was initially I had no structured manner of how I studied or how my general preparation was. So starting off, I picked up the topics that I wasn't clear about. Like I said, I purchased this DSA course on Geeks for Geeks. So there was this entire systematic way of all the different topics, from MaxAct, dynamic programming, trees, and all of that. And if there was some topic that I wasn't sure, I would just learn that approach. The mistake that I did earlier was that I used to exhaustively try to perfect that certain particular domain. What happened was that one, I wasn't triggering my thinking. I already knew that that particular question was from that topic. And two, it really doesn't work that way. It's not like you're going to see a question and then that question is going to pop up again and that's going to help you. So just have like a brief idea of whatever it is, or just find a structured course. You can, there are a lot of free courses also. You need not buy anything, and sort of like just to have a core grip on each concept. After this, I really really recommend you to just shoot problems at yourself. Go to Lead Code, just randomly start solving. Lead Code medium to hard is recommended. If you're not able to solve, then obviously go ahead with easy, and then just normally interview coding questions are of medium to hard level. So try solving that and try to solve at least one question a day. So that at least you're consistent. And one tip is, don't get hung up on a question. Like Swanuja mentioned, the maximum time you will have for a question ever is 30 minutes. So if it's if you're spending more than 30 minutes, just read up the solution, maybe come back to it a few days later, but don't try to keep on solving it. Because what happens is we sort of carry the same mindset while writing an exam, and you just really get hung up on a question. It's so happened that certain coding tests, I wasn't able to pass 2 test cases. I really really got hung up on that particular question, and I wasn't able to cater time to the rest of the things. And during your interview process, try to think out loud whatever your solution may be. Always keep talking. Don't let the interviewer think that you're absolutely clueless. So just whatever your solution may be, whatever your approach may be, just think out loud so they know what your thought process is. So yeah. And as Swanija mentioned earlier, for networking and OS concepts, Gate Smashers, he talks in Hindi, but I think it's really really good. They're all short. It's all a playlist specifically for Gate, but they cover all the important OS interview uh, questions, and it also helped for my ESA.
Thank you so much. I just have one more question. I'm going to try my best to frame it in a nice way. So, how valuable are courses which don't give certificates? Like, as students, we tend to audit a lot of courses from Coursera and just find free resources out there. So you have the knowledge, but you don't have a certificate to prove that you have it. So, like, how do you bring it up in your resume that you have this?
Yeah, Sunit, you can go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So I wouldn't say just do courses for the sake of certification. Get a certificate, you'll at least get some clarity. Okay, is this something which you like? Or even better, if is this something which you don't like? So you won't further waste your time going after that. So that's one part of it, to assess if that's something which you like or not. And one more part of it is, you need not do all courses for the sake of certification. You can do it for your own knowledge, because you never know when you'll apply that knowledge, whether it's with an interviewer. Let's say he comes up with a question and the answer to it was something which you heard the course instructor talk about in the course. So that is something which will definitely click, because you would have heard the course with interest if you like it. So that's one more thing. And third thing, I had a suggestion. It might not be true for all. Just look out for courses which have some part of self evaluation or some part of project building after the course, because there's a theoretical part of it which is definitely important. But if you can build a project out of that same course, even though you don't have a certificate to prove that, okay, I've done this course or something, you definitely have a project to back up what you did, which shows the interviewer or which shows the organization that, okay, this person is not just someone who seeks in knowledge, but also does something with it and comes out with something resourceful out of it. So I would suggest these things. Yeah.
So basically, if we are doing something like that where we don't have a certificate, it's better to have a project or something else of that sort, which is solid and we can put it into our resume.
Yeah, it'll definitely be helpful, because any additional project which you've done on is something which you can talk about during your interview. And also it is something which will, I mean, a lot of people have this misconception we should only do things to build resume. As far as it is important to build the resume, it's also important to build knowledge in certain aspects, because you never know when you will be using that knowledge. Let it be during your work, or let it be during an interview to get to the work. So I feel like knowledge also is important, and practically, working on it by doing a project does help for sure. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you all so much. Anyone else? Do you guys have anything to add to this? Okay, we'll move on to the next question then. Aishwarya?
Thank you, guys. So the next question is for Adarsh, Purvi, and Swanuja. How did you prepare for interviews?
Okay, I'll go first. So before, say you clear the coding test and now you've gotten a mail that you've been selected for the interview. My first interview experience, I didn't have any time. In fact, my interview slot was between 12 and 1, and I got an email at 12:15 saying your interview has been scheduled. So I just put on some decent clothes and I joined, and I wasn't prepared at all. I just stamped my way through it, honestly. I just spoke whatever came to my mind. But how you would go about preparing for interviews is you have to be thorough with your concepts, because you have no idea what the interviewer is going to ask you. If I had enough time before an interview, like there was a good a good 2-3 days given, I'd go and revise my OS concepts, because usually every interview I had was asking me basics about, say, deadlocks and threads and processes and mutex and things like that. So I'd revise my OS concepts, I'd revise my searching and sorting algorithms, the time complexities and the space complexities for these algorithms, and I'd go through my project write-ups. And if needed, if needed, you can go through some more DSA concepts, but uh, in the beginning, I wasn't really clearing as many interviews. I started clearing interviews, getting to interviews after writing, say, 20-30 coding tests. So by that time, I was sort of confident with my DSA. So I didn't feel the need to separately revise that, but I felt the need to separately revise my project write-ups and OS and things like that. So I'd recommend you do that before an interview. Also, prepare answers to really cliched questions and keep them ready. 100% your interview is going to start with tell me about yourself. So keep an elevator pitch about yourself ready. Don't fumble there and be like, I am Swanuja, I am from Bangalore, and give a very dumb answer basically. So keep an elevator pitch about yourself ready. In just like a minute, you're supposed to sum up your entire resume or things that may not be on your resume that might interest them. Keep questions to generic questions like what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what are the areas you'd like to improve on, what are the difficulties you faced in, say, some project, and how did you overcome them. You can just Google questions like these are typically HR round questions. You can Google questions like this and keep your answers ready so you don't fumble when you're asked on the spot. Other tips would be to look good, look presentable, and be confident and happy. Smile. These are just general tips to like you need to make a good first impression. So when it comes to the coding question, so in some interviews they might give you a question and then you're asked to maybe code it in front of them, or if you're not asked to code it in front of them, you may be asked to come up with a solution and just explain it. In my VMware interview, I realized how bad I was. They just asked me to reverse a link list, and I wasn't able to do it without a pen and paper in front of me. So I was trying to like make hand gestures in the air to show them how I'm going to reverse a linked list. So while you're coding, when you're practicing, talk to yourself. So if you had to explain a coding solution to someone, how would you go about it? So talk to yourself, like explain a solution to yourself. So when you've been asked to explain a solution in the interview, it'll be easier for you. And always ask questions, not just about their company, but or about the interviewer's work or anything, but if you haven't understood the question they've asked, clarify it. Just don't sit there clueless. If you haven't understood anything, just don't be scared to ask questions and clarify it all upfront. And always ask questions at the end of the interview. Whenever the interviewer asks, "Do you have anything for us?" Just ask something. Even if you don't have, if even if you're not very interested or anything, just have something. Some generic questions ready you can ask in every interview, or you can ask, "How do you think I did? Is there any way I can improve? Did you find any weak areas you think I can work on things like that?" And then after the interview, if you're lucky and if you manage to find their email ID on LinkedIn, you can contact them and be like, "Thank you for the interview. I was grateful to have this chance." I didn't do that for all the interviews, but one specific company, I reached the HR round, and I thought it'll go well and I'll get selected, but it didn't work out. I didn't get selected for God knows what reason. So I managed to reach out the interview and be like, I really wanted to know where I was lacking so I can improve on my performance for my upcoming interviews and things like that. So I would recommend you can always follow up on your interview later. I think Adarsh and Purvi can then talk about anything else I've missed on.
Thanks, Swanija. She's actually covered most of it, so I just add in one or two things that I wanted to tell before. Um, One thing is, when you see the company that you've been shortlisted for, just type in the name plus GFG archives on Google. I'm pretty sure you know what it is, but just check it out nonetheless. So in Geeks for Geeks, you can just find the role that you're looking for in the company, and someone would have told how their entire experience was. So with the coding round, the interview process, and everything. While it won't be the same for you, obviously, because there's somewhere else and some other college, everything, different interviewer, everything. But there might be slight similarities in like how many rounds are there, what all is going on in the round, not exactly what's there in each round, but at least you'll get a rough idea. So you'll be a little less anxious. Plus, like Swanija mentioned, just know everything about OSD, DBMS, CN, and you need to speak your mind while you're coding. And some skills that you need to have are good communication skills, and do your best to sound confident with everything you're talking about. Do not bullshit with them, because they've been doing this for a long time and they'll catch you instantly. Um, know your resume inside out, like Prithwijit mentioned. Sometimes they'll just hover over your project, so sometimes they might go in depth and they can grill you. So just be prepared for everything. That's all I want to say.
Okay, hi. Just adding on to what Swanuja and Adarsh said. So let's just go in chronological order, right? So before the interview, like Adarsh just said, stalk the company on Geeks for Geeks, because even if, let's say, you don't get the same or even similar questions, you'll get an idea of what data structures they like. So that's going to help you out definitely. And like Swanuja said, you know they're going to ask you to say something about yourself. And normally it's a very generic question that's only asked just to make you comfortable with the interviewer. But in my experience, what's happened is if you give a very meh kind of answer, it doesn't matter. But if you give a good answer, you've practiced it, it's a very killer kind of intro, it is going to give a very good impression to the interviewer. So let's say later on at some point you fumbled with some questions, you weren't sure. It's still like, because the first impression was really good. So it's going to, they're more likely to help you out, and you've created that comfort zone for yourself. So how do you create this killer pitch now? First, just go and like blindly write down whatever you think needs to be said about yourself, and then polish it a little based on what you think, and then practice it in the mirror a few times. But what's more important is go and practice it in front of your sibling or in front of your parents and ask them to be brutally honest. And I can tell you at that point you'll feel hurt, but it's very important, because once it happened where I went and told my dad my intro pitch, and within the first line he said, "Purvi, I've shut off. I'm not interested anymore." And you want this kind of feedback so you can polish that pitch before the interview. So then take this feedback, fix up your intro, and make sure that it's really good. And what you need to do, what has worked for me at least, is to personalize it for every company that you're interviewing with. Like, for example, when I interviewed with Visa, at the end, I told them that the first ever card that was given to me was a Visa card. And you think it doesn't matter, but it kind of creates this small attachment between you and the interviewer. Okay, she's interested in Visa beyond just the job, right? Then there's obviously the standard stuff: sit with good lighting, make sure you have water next to you, and these kind of things. And what's more important is the interview shouldn't feel like an interview. It should be like a conversation. And the best way to do that is to be really honest about it. Like, they'll ask you, how are you feeling? I've often said that I'm a little nervous about this. And that'll kind of put everyone at ease, and they'll be like, oh, don't be nervous. It's okay. It's fine. And that's just how it's supposed to be. Make it a conversation. If you don't know something, say you don't know. And what's worked for me at least is, let's say OS is not your strong suit, right? And they're asking you OS questions that you managed to like tell them the bare minimum that you do know, and they're still going in depth into OS, and this really isn't your subject. You can tell them that, sir, I don't know. And what gives a better impression is saying, so this isn't too much of my domain. So how about, can you ask me something in, let's say, computer networks or DBMS or something? And you'll see that most interviewers are more than happy to shift to a different domain because they don't expect you to know everything. So let's say you're not good at this particular domain, but you're good at every other domain that they've asked. This one isn't going to matter. So maybe talk about these things. So that's the interview. Now, after the interview, what do you do? I think we mentioned in our intros that go and introspect, think about what could have been better. And like Swanuja said, you can ask the interviewer, if you're sure that you're not going to get this, you might as well ask the interviewer, what can I do better? But if you're unsure, maybe don't go for it, because let's say they didn't think it was as bad as you're thinking it was bad. It kind of leaves a negative impression, because then they start thinking about what you could have done better. But if you're sure you're not clearing this, you can ask them, and you can ask them how to improve. So most interviewers will be very helpful about these things. I think one last thing I want to say is, because we're practicing coding so much, and because the coding rounds, most of the times they ask for like optimized solution or whatever, we're still thinking in that optimized way. But in interviews, what happens is they just, even if you tell them the brute force solution, they at least know how you're thinking. So with me, a lot of the times the problem happened where I was directly trying to optimize it. So I take up an unnecessary amount of time, and the interviewers think I don't know anything because I'm not talking through my brute force solution itself. So talk through your brute force solution and then tell them, do you want me to optimize it? And then optimize. Because half the times they don't even want you to optimize it. So why worry about the optimization, right? So I think that's my experience with interviews, and that's how I've generally dealt with them.
Okay, thank you. So I have another question for you guys. So, how different are the skills required for a tech and non-tech role generally?
Um, right. So, I mean, being one of the only non-tech panelists in this role, I think I can talk for the non-tech part of it. I would love one of them to talk about the tech part of it, complementing my answer. So, it's completely different because I am a CS engineer, and when I had to switch to a non-tech role, they don't they've you're not going to experience them asking reverse a linked list or find the left root of the tree, nothing of that sort. It's completely different. So I will talk about the non-tech part of it. The key part which they look for in the non-tech role is your skills, as in your experiences being, as I mentioned again, time and time again, I want to stress on it, the importance of being a part of clubs, and if possible leading at least one club in your tenure as a graduate in PES. And this is the clubs part of it, representing teams. It shows that you're not just you can these things don't just show your skills of leadership and other parts of it. Like leading a team shows you are an organized person, you're a structured person, you can communicate well within a team, you can manage your time between academics and your co-curriculars leading a club. So these are the kinds of soft skills which you look for. And representing, like for my in my case, I represented the basketball and badminton team. This went on to show them that okay, this person is not completely academically oriented. He also does what he likes. He knows how to manage his time between academics and sports is his interest. So this puts a strong impression, because if I just go to an interview and say I am a leader, I manage my time well, I'm a structured person, they'll be like, what do you have? What proof do you have to back what you're saying? So these are some things which you must do to build your resume to support what your qualities and skills are. So one, as I mentioned, the co-curriculars part of it is very, very important to show some soft skills which they require. Second thing is you need to have that skill of being concise. As the panelists mentioned in the previous question, if you write, the HRs are going to go through thousands and hundreds, if not thousands, of employee CVs and whatnot on a daily basis. A research study from LinkedIn says that a recruiter doesn't spend more than 6 to 8 seconds looking at a CV. So within this 6 to 8 seconds, how do you captivate one's attention? You need to be crisp about what you write on your, keep your LinkedIn updated before I mention about that. So you need to be crisp about what you write in the questions, like the questions as why do you want to join this company? Make sure do some research about the company, know yourself well. So put out your qualities, put out how your qualities can blend well with the company's values or the company's role, what they're looking for. And in short, do your research well about yourself and the company and the role, so that you can be concise about what you're writing in your LinkedIn profile, maybe, or within the, let's say if you have applied to LinkedIn and they have a questionnaire, make sure these things are put out well, so that, and don't beat around the bush. And these are some of the things which I feel are really, really important, apart from being confident in the interview. As Purvi mentioned, don't make it as a very formal occasion where you're like very restricted and to yourself. Be open to the interviewer, like have a lively conversation with them, have a nice smile on your face. Just make it lively for them. They are doing this for hundreds and thousands of students. What is it that is going to make Sunit stand out from the rest of it? Like, make sure you leave an impression with them by just following these minutest of things. Just be open to them, just be honest with them. So at least from the non-tech part of it, this is what my experience was in order to get the 3 internships which I did. I would like one of the other panelists to talk about the tech part of it.
Thank you. So I just have one more question. So what if I'm, as of right now, if I'm sure that I'm not interested in a tech role, how should I prepare from now for a non-tech role?
Right.
Like as in the extra, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, to be very, very honest, I think the pandemic, I mean, it was a boon for me in terms of the path which I took in my career, because while there was no pandemic, I was so focused on CS. I was so focused on, the just going with what's happening, completing. I mean, everyone's going to agree how like, time consuming, the projects in PESA, the assignments, the amount of, I mean, I wouldn't say stress, but they do give you a lot of work to do. And I was completely focused on that. The pandemic and it being online gave me a sense of time to, introspect myself as, okay, is this something I even want to go forward with? So the first step to even switch to a non-tech role is the self-realization that, okay, this is not for me. The second step is not to be like, okay, that I've committed this mistake of joining. I mean, I wouldn't call it a mistake, but let's say I don't think it was the best of choice to join CS engineering because I like a non-tech role. Instead of regretting it, or instead of being like, okay, let's just go forward with it, finish it, and finish it as in go ahead with the same flow and join a tech role even though you don't want to do and don't see your future in it. The second step after realizing that you want to switch would be to act upon it and be like, okay, it's fine, it's not too late, it's never too late. Just focus more on what interests you and what doesn't interest you apart from tech. So let's say how I realized what I like and what I didn't like about non-tech roles was actually doing internships. So when I did a couple of internships in my third year, I realized, okay, this is something I really like, this is something I don't like. And to be very honest, CS I feel was good for me because while I was doing my projects, I realized I had some other skills which weren't present. Like, let's say, organizing the team, getting work done, or like communicating well within the team, communicating well with the teachers. So these are skills which I felt I had, and I was looking for roles based on these qualities in the non-tech segment by interning in them, by doing courses. So I realized what I don't like, what I like, and by the time placements came, I was very, very confident. Okay, this is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to switch by my co-curriculars, my management minors and pests, and my experiences interning will support me in this. So I was confident to switch. And when placements came, I wasn't too afraid that, oh, everyone's getting, placed in these tech roles. What am I going to do? I knew it's good for them. It's not something for me. So based on these three things, I had that confidence to switch into the non-tech role, and I'm in a place which I like. So yeah, you realizing that you want to make the switch, acting upon it by introspecting yourself on your strengths, and third thing is going and doing your research on what is available in the market, what is the role that suits you best, are the things which I would suggest to switch to a non-tech if you are interested.
Also, there are like very few non-tech roles. Like you have product manager roles that do come to PES. I think Visa and Epsilon had them, but just like very few. So yeah, if you're interested, you could apply for those.
Thank you. Over to you, Anaga.
Yeah. Does anyone else have anything to add? If not, we'll move on to the next question. Okay, so this question is for Sunit and Purvi. Can you tell us about internships we can do during our undergrad?
Again, I'm going to talk from the non-tech point of view.
Fine.
Sorry?
No, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So, regarding internships that you can do during your undergrad time, one is look out for internships in PES itself. Honestly, PES has a lot of, they have PESU Venture Labs. You can approach CIE in order to ask what internships to do. And I mean, for the tech people, I'm pretty sure there are a lot of professors you can approach and ask them if they know of something. And so this is, and these are, for the non-tech part of it, if you want to intern somewhere, first step would be to network within your circle, which is ask your own dad, maybe if you know there's an opening, or if your company is open, or if any of your friends who are hiring. That's one part of it. Second is go a little outside your circle. If you're in an apartment, or if you're in a community, or if you're in a group, ask people around. Don't just go and ask them, hey, give me a job, I want a job. Like that's not the way to do it. When I say shamelessly go and ask people, you need to build some kind of connect with them. Like go talk to them, interact with them just on a personal level. Ask them questions about roles. Don't just go ask for the job. Like ask, okay, what do you do? What is your company into? What are the kind of roles? And deep dive into it, and then be like, okay, sure, like so present yourself well in this part. Like always mention some of the projects which you've done, some of the skills which you have, some of the clubs which you've led, or any of those matters, like indicate that to them so that they themselves can pick on, okay, like he's done this. They themselves might come out to you and say, okay, hey, this kind of internship is there. Why don't you, why are you interested in it? Or so this is one more. And one more way is definitely do your own research. Go on LinkedIn, Internshala, IIM jobs. You'll find various kinds of internships. So don't feel, this need that I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure all the panelists here and everyone here were in once at least they were in this stage where they're like, okay, I'm ground zero. I don't know what I want to do, what I don't want to do. So don't feel, afraid to take up internships and figure out what you like and what you don't like. So I would not specifically suggest certain internships which you do or which you shouldn't do. If you feel you're inclined towards something, go for it, do that internship and see if that's meant for you. If it is, great. If it's not, you'll know, okay, this is not something which I want to do. At least you'll have some sense of clarity. So that's my few cents on it.
Okay, so continuing on where Sunit left off. So let's talk about since he did the non-tech, I'll do the tech part. So the prerequisites generally for a tech thing is your GPA, your resume, and if you're applying on campus, your branch. So that's CS or EC or whatever. If on campus, then your branch matters, but otherwise not really. Coming to where you can get internships, honestly, as of right now, the sky is the limit. Every domain ever in tech is hiring, and not just at the fresher level, but like at all levels. So it shouldn't be too much of an issue. I have many friends who couldn't get an internship on campus, but they weren't disheartened and they all went and applied off campus. And most of them have got PPOs before the people on campus even did their internships. So don't worry about not getting it or, not getting on campus because the world is your oyster. Now let's talk about how to, I think Sunit covered how we can approach someone for an internship. But I'll tell you what I've done in the tech sphere at least. Since the whole world is moving online, we have a lot of these online conferences happening, especially, and we tend to attend a lot of these conferences in our area of interest. Like, I think I can't count how many cybersecurity conferences I've attended. And something I didn't do initially, but started doing later was the speakers are really established people. And a lot of the time you don't realize it, but the speakers are often recruiters themselves. So you just leave them, like I think Swanuja or someone initially mentioned that you just connect with them on LinkedIn later. And you, like I typically just go and tell them how, only for those who I genuinely felt like I learned something from their talk, I'd leave them a message. And it was surprising to me how many of them would reach out again, who would actually reply to that. And, they'd be interested in making a connect and would be like, are you looking for a job right now? So it's surprising, but it happens. And especially because right now, most of the work can be done online. If you're in the tech sphere, you could very well be applying to remote locations also. There are plenty of internships even right now who have that remote option on. So you can do that as well. Let's talk about, I think, yeah, so just my 2 cents on resume, because with LinkedIn, I think resume is what matters more. And like they've mentioned before, there are like thousands of applicants who are applying for the same thing. The way you place your sections matters. Your profile photo matters. Whether you decide to put your languages first or your projects first matters. And your non-academics also matter. But I think the easiest thing to do is go ahead, check out some templates on like Canva or Figma, and it becomes very easy for you to create your good, appealing resume. Just one thing to note, which nobody told me and I learned the hard way, is that through the first few rounds of filtering of candidates, a machine is actually reading your resume. So most of us have like 2 panels where there are 2 different things going on in both panels, but the machine's reading it as one line. So it won't make sense. So what you can do is maybe put the keywords together because it's just doing like a keyword match. So that should also help you out. But yeah, go ahead and apply for that internship. Don't wait around. Go for it.
Oh, yeah. Just Purvi reminded me of one thing. What she said is very, very true about the resume part of it. There's that ATS checker which checks for the keywords, which is something which is very important for people to know because even I wasn't aware of this. So, like, do look out for that. And also mention only keywords. Don't beat around the bush in your resume. It's a 1-page document which should sum up everything you want the interviewer to see and everything that you want to talk about during your interview. So don't beat around the bush, keep it concise, keep mention things which you want to talk about, because I feel resume is a very, very strong instrument which can help you in your interview, not only in the sense of talking about what you do, but also like they have a limited amount of time. If I think the panelists mentioned before as well, it's up to you how you direct the flow of the interview. Like if you've mentioned interesting parts in your resume, you never know, they might not even ask something which they wanted to, and they'll just talk more about you, which you will definitely be confident about, which will definitely improve your chances of getting through those rounds. So yeah.
Does anyone else have anything to add to this? If not, we'll move on to the next question. Okay, let's go to the next question. So this is for Sunit, Swanuja, and Prithwijit. How are we supposed to handle the stress of college with multiple other things? Like we are doing courses and all that. So how are we supposed to handle everything and like organize ourselves?
Right. So, if it's fine, I'll begin with this.
Yeah, sure.
So, definitely when you join PES, everyone would have told you it's a jail, it's a school. Like they're gonna, torture you with assignments, projects, and they'll give you so much course and stuff like that, which is true to an extent, but it's also about how you can manage your time. If you actually sit and stress about, oh, there's so much to do, you'll always focus all your time on it and you'll be left with nothing else to do. But to be very honest, if you actually sit down and see where most of your time is going and where you want to put most of your time into, you'll definitely find enough amount of time to complement your co-curriculars with your academics. And I feel it's very, very important to complete your assignments on time, to complete your quizzes, complete your projects, complete studying for exams. Definitely it's very important, but at the same time, I'm very, very sure that you have enough time during an entire semester to devote an hour, maybe 3-4 hours a week to a club which you like. This is not only going to improve your college life because you're going to be a part of, multiple clubs or in something which you're interested in. This will actually help you release stress. As in, when I was a part of a club, I liked doing what I did in the club so much that I would genuinely forget about, oh, college is bad because they give projects. I would be like, college is good because it provides me clubs like these to be a part of, which actually helps me handle stress by devoting time. And this, obviously, as we've all mentioned in all our answers, co-curriculars definitely add on to building your resume and talking about in your interviews. So yeah, like just my suggestion of how to handle stress would be to be a bit regular with what you do, or even if you're a last minute finisher, that's fine. But like, just manage your time well. Don't waste too much time. When I say that, don't take it as you're not supposed to go out for restaurants or movies or anything. That's definitely not what I mean by saying don't waste your time. What I mean is just sit and see where bulk of your time is going and where you feel you can devote time to, because everyone is doing the same thing as you. It's not like you're special where the teacher has given only you things. Everyone's doing. What's going to make you stand out is if you are doing something extra which you yourself like, which will definitely help you handle the stress. So just be a little more structured in managing your time. And yeah, that's my part of it.
Yeah, so I'll continue where Sunit left off. So, as you know, as he said too, like it is it is bound to be stressful from whoever you ask. But I think if PES does one thing very, very rigorously, that it is that it makes us stick to deadlines for our projects and assignments. So as long as you're sticking to those deadlines and you're doing that weekly work towards the end semester project that you have for each subject, I think you should be fine. And I know it can get a lot stressful because there are five major courses, and at least 3 or 4 out of those 5 courses have that end sem project, and they are huge projects. They are like time consuming, at least 1 or 2 month wala projects. So sticking to sticking to deadlines, having a schedule per day of what you want to do. Don't make it a fixed schedule, because I know there'll be a mail popping up saying that there's an interview, there's a test, there's a blah blah whatever. So keep your schedule flexible so that you can incorporate all these changes. And the last 2 semesters in college during placement are going to be harrowing, so make sure you have a very flexible schedule to incorporate all of this. And as Sunit already mentioned, I think if you're not finding time because you are very stressed about ISAs, ESAs, etc., at least doing one problem per day, or 2-3 problems per day will help you a lot when it finally comes to placement tests and interviews. Because I have continuously been doing that, and sometimes there have been large gaps, and that has not been helpful, because again I have to like go back and revise my concepts. So sticking to 1 or 2-3 problems per day when it comes to DSAs and algorithms and all will will be wonders when it comes to the final tests and all. Clubs, I would say, are a welcome relief, because I spent a lot of time organizing events and talks and whatnot for the club. So it did help a lot when you're working with your friends, when you're working with your classmates, organizing something, because it gives you a welcome relief when you're not constantly on ISA prep, ESA prep, or placement prep. So please go ahead and enjoy your time in clubs, because as soon as you step into professional life, all these kind of fall away. There's no more clubs or concepts of clubs anyways. To relieve yourself of stress, I think everyone has their individual hobby. For me, it was music, writing. So I kept doing that on the side whenever I found time, and whenever I could not focus at all at placement prep or ISA prep or ESA prep. And a thing that helped me personally was because it was a pandemic and we were having classes online and courses online and even interviews online, my calls with my friends. So we used to get on a Google Meet call and play Scribble. And I think Adarsh or Purvi had also mentioned that there's a website called Binary Search, where if you're tired of coding on your own, you can get together and solve that problem. So Binary Search is a good website for you to like collectively code and have fun while you're coding. So all these things can like sort of tone down the stress of the placement season. Always remember that this will pass. It's just a year, and you're going to do fine. So Swanija, go ahead.
Thank you, Prithwijit. I'll just, Sunit and Prithwijit did cover everything. So I'll just talk about when placements actually start in those few months. How do you go about it? Your placements start in 6 semesters. So based on your credit requirements, you might have to take up a few special topics then, or you might be doing an internship. So during placements, your course workload won't be as heavy as what it was during fifth and sixth sem. You don't have 5 major subjects of 4 credits or 3 credits with your you just have special topics you have to do for 2 credits. I had to do 3 special topics in my seventh sem. So it was 3 special topics of 2 credits. So the work and course load was obviously a bit lesser compared to the previous semesters, but that is compensated by the amount of work you have to do for placements. So my main points would be to distract yourself from the trauma you're very much going to go through. You can find and join some class. So I still hadn't had I still didn't have my driving license. So I made sure I joined a driving class which I paid for. So I was forced to step out of the house for an hour every day for 2 weeks and find something else to be occupied with than be at home and continuously stress about my coding skills. So it doesn't have to be driving class. You can go get a cult membership or find a yoga or aerobics class or just find anything to occupy yourself with which has nothing to do with PES and placements, and do it in a way where you're forced to keep some time aside. So like once money is involved, I know I'll be forced to give myself an hour to have fun every day. But if you think you're able to keep yourself some time without like joining any class or paying for any membership, definitely do that. Like Prithwijit said, get on call with your friends. My friends and I would say, do that. I have a teleparty once a week or twice a week, schedule say like a movie every Sunday night or something. So like, okay, you know that you need to watch a movie with your friends at 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. So you try to get things done before that, and then you just have to relax say 10 p.m. onwards. Like Prithwijit said, you can also study together. While placements is happening, remind you have to constantly remind yourself to not compare yourself. Your placement journey is completely different from your friend's placement journey. If you're getting placed later, or if someone else got placed before you, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean you're lesser than them, or you're not as smart as them, or nothing like that. You have to constantly remind yourself that it is very luck based. Some things may not just work out for you. You might get a bad interviewer someday. You might not get the correct coding question someday. So do not focus on other people's placement journey. You just have to constantly remind yourself that as long as you work hard, you'll get there. You'll get placed in the company you're meant to. And yeah, I think that's it. Just find distractions, find hobbies to occupy yourself with, because the workload won't be as bad. Special topic is just something you can study a day or two before, at least special topics I took. And yeah, I think that's it. I've covered all the points I wanted to.
Just
So much.
sorry, just wanted to add on to something which Swanija and Prithwijit also mentioned. Like, don't stress so much and make it your sole objective to, fully be focused on this and not do anything at all, because I don't believe that's sustainable. As important as it is, you need to make sure that you're, doing some things which you like on a daily basis. So, like, as they mentioned, go for a class or play something, or just sing, dance, talk to your friends, anything. Just make sure you have some mode of stress release. Don't become so focused. I mean, stay focused, but don't become so, into it that you're not even looking around and, just hampering with what's happening on a daily basis. So, yeah.
Also, ranting helps a lot. If you had like a really bad interview and you just can't stop crying about it, just get on call with a friend and just talk and just bits about how bad everything has been and how nothing is working in your favor, and then like all that outlet and relief helps, and then you'll be back on track a while later. So, or you can just like write it down somewhere, just rant a lot, because it gets really irritating and frustrating sometimes when no matter how much hard you're trying, it's just not working out. But you have to constantly remind yourself that I have to keep doing, like I just have to keep working, something will work out. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Guys, I have follow-up questions for all of you. So first of all, Sunit, what exactly did you include in your non-technical resume? Was it only club activities?
No, not really. So there were different elements to it. It might come out as a surprise, but I did involve even my even the project which I did, as they mentioned, the data analytics or my capstone project. To be very honest, I mentioned that as well on my resume, because it's not just about, the clubs and activities. It's also about skills which you've imbibed even by doing your technical projects. Even though it is a technical project, there are a lot of non-technical aspects to it, as in communicating, understanding the problem, communicating with the teacher to get feedback, communicating that with your friends, and there's research into it which goes, and these are skills which are really important for non-tech roles. So, like, don't just think of it as a unidirection where, okay, I need to build a resume for a non-tech role, so I need to do non-tech role specific things. That's not true. Even in your daily life, at least in non-tech, it's not hardcore skills. I believe, like coding or cloud infrastructure knowledge or anything. Even in your daily life, if you're able to express how what you do has some soft skill attached to it in your resume and can convey it in a very good manner, that is something which is very, very useful. So resume, I feel, is the most important thing in a non-tech role, because there's no coding round associated with it to filter out students. The only basis of filtering and your communication during interviews resumes. So my resume consisted of, let's say, my definitely my education, my skills which I've imbibed from all these clubs, and so you don't just mention that I was a part of this club. You need to use action words which convey strong messages. As I mentioned, you need to be concise in your resume. You need to stress on what you learned by being a part of this club. It's not just I was a part of this club. You need to mention leading this club helped me improve upon my leadership, my communication, my collaboration. These are the skills which you associate with the position which you had in the club, and any co-curricular activity which you've done helps. So representing the teams, even though it might sound like, okay, how is basketball or badminton going to help in the company which you're going to join, it shows that you have teamwork. So to derive what soft skills you have associated with what you do on a daily basis or what you've done with co-curriculars and activities is quite an important thing. And don't neglect that, oh, it's a technical thing, I want to go to non-tech, I won't do it. Like, while doing the technical part of it, I realized that there are so many roles. Like, let's say a product manager, there is a technical part of a product manager as well. But if someone wants communicating with the team, he needs to have some basic knowledge of tech as well. So, like, don't neglect the college projects part of it. Like, you can definitely mention that as well, and then talk about how, apart from the technical skills, what were the important parts of it to get to the final project, which how you help the team. So yeah, that's how I went about it. And obviously, like, as I mentioned, internships were a very important part of it, which I've mentioned in my resume, because an internship shows a company that, okay, this person has taken out that extra time from his regular college life in order to figure out if he wants to do something by working in it shows the company that, okay, he's a good team player who can work in an organization and has prior experience in it. Like, the LinkedIn recommendations which you can get from an internship are very valuable. So look out to work in a space where, I mean, the pay isn't something which you should look out for the most. At least in the summer internship or the first couple of internships, look out for better exposure where you can work under people who are really knowledgeable or are really ready to help you. Because as your main question was, is my club activities the only thing? No, I've very very much stressed upon how I learned a lot during my internships, and it's also highlighted in the recommendations which I got on LinkedIn by the same founder of the company. So yeah, internships, clubs and activities, definitely. Other co-curriculars like sports, don't feel shy to mention that. And also mention how you derive certain soft skills which you feel are important for the job from all that you do. So yeah.
Thank you so much. So there's a question for Adarsh and Swanuja. How did your experience as club head help you in placements?
Swanija, you want to go first?
Okay, sure. So I was asked to talk about my experience as club head only when I reached, say, like the HR rounds or the managerial rounds. So if you're not able to clear the coding test, or if it's not a resume-based shortlisting, or if you're applying on campus, your club experiences won't really help in the initial stages. But in the HR round, it does give you a lot to talk about. It allows you to flex about your non-technical skills and your soft skills, because then I was able to talk about how I was leading a club, organizing and managing events, what are the ideas we came up with for campus, what are the things we tried, what are the events we organized on campus pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. And it's a really good conversation starter where you, like I said, you get to talk about a lot of your soft skills and technical skills, which are extremely necessary for a role, because you want to show that you can work along well with people, how good are your communication skills, how good are you working in a team, and so on. So I think I was asked about it in every HR interview round I reached. So it definitely did help me. I think Adarsh can talk about anything else I missed.
Yeah, that's pretty similar. So yeah, mainly they ask you about your extracurriculars in the managerial round when it comes to on-campus placements. Sunit knows more of the off-campus ones. Um, so yeah, they usually ask you what have you done as the lead or as being part of the club and everything. So I've been watching The Office lately. So there's this one thing that Creed said that just makes sense here. You make more money as a leader, but have more fun as a follower when he was talking about cults. So it's the same here, not money as he says, but it's more like when you're a lead, you can network better with people on LinkedIn and all that. Like, at least that's what I felt. It's not necessary that you have to lead a club to network, but it kind of gave me a sense of confidence when I had to call in a speaker or something. So that helped me. And by networking more, my communication skills improved. And by doing that, overall, I just spoke better in the interview. So everything just went well for me. And yeah, most of the other things are covered by Swanuja.
Just one more thing which I wanted to mention. So the question directed was if the only aspects of a resume for a non-tech role are the clubs and co-curriculars. One more thing which I forgot to mention was once I did realize that it wasn't for me. I didn't want to continue in this path of tech, so naturally I wanted to sit for an off-campus placement. One more thing which I realized was to show that I am really serious about it, because definitely a question is going to arise, right, in your non-tech role or off-campus. Off-campus non-tech role. At least for me, every interview which I sat for, same question was, you're a CS student from PES. Like, why do you want to sit for this role? Like, how do you think you're suitable for it? So to show that I was genuinely serious about it and not just sitting for the sake of it in the interview, I stressed a lot about my management minors in PES, because that is something I realized I can do in my college tenure to show that, okay, I'm serious about it. I'm ready to take up another minors course along with the majors in computer science to show that, okay, I'm serious about it. So I'm not suggesting like strictly, these are not strict do's for everyone to do in order to get a non-tech role or on off campus, but I'm saying it helps to show you're serious about it by like this was one of the means for me. You can definitely show it in any other way possible, maybe by taking up a small assignment in your community itself, where it shows how you were how you're suitable for a non-tech role or what skills you showed there, or maybe even taking up any course online and building just taking up a course with certification, maybe in this case, to show that, okay, I actually was serious about it. I've spent this much time understanding this and I know this is what I want. So yeah.
Thank you so much, guys. Okay, so since we're already over time, let's just go over the form questions really quick. So first question, competitive coding versus development. Which one is more useful for placements? Samhita, do you want to take this one up?
Like I mentioned before, a lot of startups like Cred come for development roles specifically. So if you're interested in that, for those type of roles, it is definitely a plus and definitely a must, in fact. But coming to it depends on company to company. But if you're say applying to normal MNCs, they are here for freshers, so they just sort of look for strong basics. They look for strong skills in DSA, OSA, and DSA, OS, and CN. So yeah, that's about that. But if you are a keen developer, one of the most of the high paying jobs, which with 20 lakh base, do come for developer roles.
Thank you. Okay, so the next question is for Adarsh. When is it a good time for starting to solve problems from websites such as Codeforces, Hackeror, etc.?
Like immediately, just start. Don't wait for anything. Just start and start with LeetCode or Geeks for Geeks, because Codeforces is much more harder. LeetCode might be enough, or Geeks for Geeks also might be enough. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much. So let's go to the next question. So someone's saying, I haven't taken part in many hackathons as opposed to my peers. Does that put me at a disadvantage? Prithwidget, would you like to take this one up?
Yeah, it's not a necessity per se. Like it is nice to have a couple of hackathons in your resume, or not even for resume, for experience's sake, because it is a very good platform. Hackathons, ideathons, and the like, they're a very good platform for number one, an exchange of ideas, and number two, you get to see a lot of projects from multiple people, sometimes even from other colleges and other departments. So hackathons, that's the only place where they help. Not necessarily when it comes to interviews, your interviewer will either start directly grilling you on tech related questions after you're through with your intro, or they will jump directly to your projects mentioned on your resume. So hackathons, unless you are specifically mentioning in your resume, it won't come up in your conversation. But it's a good thing to have. But don't worry, you're not at a disadvantage as long as you have enough courses and projects to fill up your resume. I don't think not having a hackathon experience is an issue.
Thank you. Okay, so let's go to the next question. This one's for Sunit. What minors would you recommend a CS student takes up?
I mean, this is a very vague question because it depends on the person's interest. If the person realizes he's more EC oriented than CS during his, maybe in second year or third year, he realizes that I want to make a switch to EC, he should go ahead and take an EC minus. Like, he shouldn't think it's going to hinder his majors or, anything as such. The minors are organized in such a way that they sort of complement your college timings. It's just another couple of hours for a couple of days in the week after your regular classes are done. So it's definitely not going to be a hindrance. It's definitely just going to be an add-on to what your majors are. So yeah, if you want to show you're interested in something, at least in my experience, taking a minors helped because it gave me an idea of, okay, is what I really thought, what I am interested in, something which I'm actually interested in. So only once I took up the management minors, I realized that, okay, these are subjects which I'm genuinely interested in. So yeah, just take up any minors which you feel like you're interested in. At least you'll figure out if you like it or no. If you like it, great.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much. Let's move on to the next question. Computer science now has a ton of competition, and there are many who are worthy for a position. What would be the other factors which would sway a panel in choosing a candidate? This question's for Adarsh and Purvi.
I'm sorry, broke off. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So, computer science has a ton of competition, and yeah, so basically they're asking what would be the other factors which would sway a panel in choosing a candidate.
Purvi, I just have like one line. I just said 1 or 2 sentences. Yeah. Basically, extracurriculars, like Sunit told, they mainly look at it off campus for non-tech, but it's important everywhere. While there are thousands or like several hundred students who are applying for the same roles, the first few rounds are basically depending on luck and based on the same subjects that you all take. That's OS, DBMS, CN, and all that, and DSA. The final few rounds mainly depend on what else you've done, like the clubs you've been a part of, what other extracurriculars you've done, etc. So if you're good with that, then yeah, you've got a good shot, I guess. That's it from my end.
Okay, I completely agree with others. There isn't much to be said here. But yeah, that's when your extracurriculars and everything else apart from academic that you've done comes into play. There's also one thing that I think is completely out of our control, but a lot of companies, I think, for example, Akamai, right? They want people who got cloud projects on their resume. That's something out of your control because you don't know this. What you can do to maybe counter this out is you can talk to your seniors. You generally know what kind of companies are coming and what kind of companies you think you really want to give a really good shot to. So you can look at their JD and try and have a similar resume when you send it in for this particular company. That's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is more for like the managerial rounds and all that. So like Swanuja, I think at one point had said there are a bunch of common questions that they ask. Like, what is the toughest thing you've done? How did you overcome it or something? So a lot of these companies have their own work-life balance and their own work policies. I think I've read somewhere there's something called a STAR methodology, which is very common in a lot of these companies. So if you like go to their pages, right, they would have written something about how they conduct their normal work culture. So if you're able to like bring in those points when you're answering these managerial questions, I think that also could maybe help. But a lot of it is out of your control when there are very similar resumes. I think that's when they start looking at you as a person rather than just as a candidate. So that's something you can do.
Thank you so much. Since we're 40 minutes over time, we're just going to skip the rest of the questions. So if you guys have anything else to add, or else we can move to the outro.
I remember that Prithwijit and Swanuja mentioned that they were using Excel sheets, and I was too. But I think I'll just show them how mine kind of looks like, and
Yeah, go for it.
yeah, so that they at least get an idea. I hope it works. Okay. I'm not really share my screen. I'd rather just attach a link later. Is that fine? You guys can share the doc.
That's fine. Yeah, we'll share.
Yeah, okay. That's fine.
One more thing, maybe we can share our resumes as well with you, apart from our other documents that we've created to help them out. So maybe they'll get an idea of what a tech resume would look like, and like in Sunit's case, what a non-tech resume would look like, something like that. Maybe that's something we can do.
Yes, that would be appreciated. Thank you so much.
And yeah, just one thing for all the juniors out there looking out, who's stressed about placements, approach seniors like us, even though it might sound scary that, how are they going to, receive it? We were in your place as well. So I'm pretty sure all of us will be more than welcome to answer any of your questions if you have any, or connect with you and, sit with you and even talk for a couple of minutes on that regard. So yeah, like don't be shy to approach someone and just get all your doubts clear. However stupid it might sound to you, we were all there and we know how you feel about it. So yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with Sunit. Go ahead and reach out. We're very friendly people. We won't eat you. Please come and text us. And I think I know I am way more active on Instagram and other social media platforms rather than LinkedIn. I think it kind of goes for everyone. So reach out to us and we will definitely help you out. If you need anything, just let us know.
Yeah, like even if you're just going to DM us on Instagram, you know our names. So we're obviously going to help you out. We'd love to help you out.
You guys are the sweetest bunch. Thank you so much. So yeah, I would like to thank the audience for making the time to sit and listen and gain all this information. And then I would like to thank our panel for making the time and sitting with us, explaining all this. Yeah, we really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you so much, guys. Bye.
Thanks, CMS, for giving all of us the opportunity. It was, we felt great being on the other side of it and not being the ones asking the questions. So yeah, thank you, CMS.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anagha, Smriti, and Khushi.
It was a morning